And we are live. It is April 27th. Coffee and Dulce. And it's the last Wednesday of the month too, which is we drop our shows. If people were listening for the first time, we drop both of our shows, Two Queers in a Truck That Follows This, and the Coffee Show every Wednesday morning. And if you live in the Eastern time zone, and welcome. Hey, Christian, good morning.
Hey, I'm sorry. That was a really slow song to start to, wasn't it?
It was a little. I was like, it felt like we asked the time about 1 in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
A little bit. Had some fun
on your way to Taco Cabana.
Yeah, especially on my way to Taco Cabana. Oh my gosh, there's a reason why San Antonio is always in the top 5 of the most average obese people in the United States, because the friggin' food there.
Oh my goodness!
Of course, none of it's local. I mean, on the Riverwalk, it's every kind of cuisine. And of course, none of it's like salad places or anything like that. Nothing healthy, because you are catering to 20 million plus tourists a year. So
tourists.
Or people coming for conventions as well, and so people want to have a good time on the world famous Riverwalk. But anyway, this is an interesting show and an interesting topic.
All right. So let's start the show. Okay. Welcome everyone to Coffee Pan Dulce. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts, along with Jenny Gunn, Mama Ruth, and Barb Bacon. Barb Bacon may be popping in here shortly, but I do not believe Mama Ruth is joining us today, so we're Mama Ruthless. We also want to join our other silent guests. Our host, St. Bernie, is back. I don't know. Do you want to keep him for the show? And then also baby Trump Pinata is with us back. They just said hi the last 2 shows, and they disappeared since we had so many other guests. So we had a great show last week, Jen. I mean, with the politics, it's like 2.1 thousand viewers already. That was good.
Anyway, it was a lot of guests. It was a lot of information, but to give, especially for people that live in Charlotte, North Carolina, or surrounding area of Mecklenburg County, it was a lot of information. There was a lot of candidates on, all really good candidates. They all spoke very well.
You did a very good job. Yeah, you did a good job moderating. I watched it several times, and I watched it today on the treadmill. And I said, "Oh, she did an excellent job." I was like, you always do a good job moderating.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
but,
exactly. All right.
It was definitely a brain workout. We have that many candidates out there, and you're trying to make sure. I actually kept little cliff notes to the side to make sure everybody got their turn.
Oh, that was good.
So when they introduced themselves, I wrote their name down in order, and then did the reverse one way and then the reverse the other way.
I
try to be fair.
So for those who haven't watched the show, you can watch it on the. I need to add. Thank you for those who are watching us on Facebook. Also, those who watch us on Facebook Live and YouTube as well. But also those who listen to us now on our audio podcast platforms like Amazon Radio, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, Spotify, and all of the rest. And so I've noticed that.
We still do that.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to get everyone started to do that.
The war in Ukraine just kind of made it go away, or at least we got a priority. And I guess our friend Elion's going to take the news cycle over for a little while.
Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and salute. Introduce yourself, Jenny. Salute. I'm sorry. Let's do salute. Okay, all right. It's just you and I. We're going to do the show.
Yeah,
let's salute to our neighbors. Whatever you're drinking this morning.
Awesome.
Today is April 27th. April 27th. Almost. It's the last Wednesday of April. We'll be coming into our May shows here soon. Also, we do want to thank our Pan Dulce sponsor and supplier, Manolo's Bakery. Manolo's Bakery here on Central Avenue in Charlotte, North Carolina. If you ever visit Charlotte, or if you're in Charlotte, please go down to Manolo's Bakery. Please also support your Black and brown small businesses, or any small business during this global pandemic. Always buy local. All right. 3 topics. And then the topic, I think, did you say the topic of our show?
We actually didn't.
Okay.
You redirected me, and so we never did let me get out of the bag. No, it's fine.
Okay, so the topic for today's show is the Latinx lost generation, 80s English-only kids. And we'll talk about that and why we want to talk about it. One of us is one of those individuals. But before we do that, let's talk about our three topics in 30 seconds or less if you want to comment on those, since we never stick to it. First topic. Trump has been held in contempt of court. I believe that occurred on Monday this week. Trump, in a New York judge, held in contempt of court. He's going to be fined $10,000 a day until he supplies the documents needed for the Attorney General in New York. Second topic is Elon Musk is buying Twitter. Big news. Want to hear what you think about that, Jen, and how that's going to impact, things and so forth. And then the last one is there was an article done in Charlotte. If you are in the Charlotte region, since we had the politics show last week, we decided to kind of talk about this. There was an article about some Republicans that are going to be running for city council or some other seats, and it talked about them, since we are more of a Democratic city and county. So with those three topics, Jen, why don't you start off?
Elon Musk, besides being a white supremacist and a total D-bag, is him buying Twitter. To me, I'm taking more of the wait and see. I want to see him actually do what he said he's going to do, which is make
sure he buys it,
making sure that he's more of an open platform type person, and doesn't affect people that do adult stuff on there, and he doesn't shut them down, because then we'll know that he's just a Republican stooge. So what I'm afraid is because he's anti-sex worker and he's very racist. And I think we're going to see. I'm afraid he's going to inject his personal feelings into it, because that's kind of what he always does. But we'll see. I don't think it does Twitter any good. I think it's a horrific move for them. Mm-hmm. I think it'll be a public disaster, and I don't think they gain anything. They lose a lot. And I think a lot less of them now. And so, as far as Trump, nobody saw that coming. It's not like how long did he take before? Did he even release his taxes? He still has it. Yeah. This is a shocker. He's gonna get his stooge followers to pay for it anyway. He's gonna go to those little deals and go, well, I need $10,000 a day. So you go,
because they're not attacking me; they're attacking you.
they're attacking us and trying to take away our rights and all of that. So, don't take liberty away from me and just fork over $10,000 a day. So he's not going to pay for it. So there's plenty of suckers in the Republican donor base that'll pay for that. They gave billions of dollars for that stupid wall that Steve Bannon ran off with money. So come on. And then
this Charlotte thing, it kind of explained that to me, because I got that. I saw that on Monday, but I wasn't sure what was that about. What's that about?
I'll read the title of the article real quick, because it's called Charlotte's Very Own Authoritarians. And it is a snapshot of one incumbent, Councilman Tariq Bakari, and then the rest of them are people that are running for office, that are not incumbents. They're not sitting council people or board of county commissions. So they're all seeking local offices, and essentially the theme of the article is they're trying to paint themselves as open-minded, different than the main Republican Party. And the article pretty much says you're just wolves in sheep clothing, that you're going to fall in line. If you get elected, you're going to fall in line and be exactly like the rest of the Republican Party. And you know what? Do I disagree with the article? Probably not. I haven't seen many Republicans break from the party line.
Because a couple of those, right? I
know several of them in the deal, including Tariq. And have they shown some signs of softening on some issues? Absolutely. The Republican Party, the two sitting council people, one that was mentioned in the article and one that wasn't, both voted yes for the non-discrimination ordinance with the 9 Democrats last year, a unanimous vote. So, is one issue going to completely reform the issue of Mecklenburg County Republicans? Probably not. Okay. It's going to take a while. I think it's more of this is the party of the bathroom bill. This is the party of January 6th. It is the insurrection party. It is the Madison Cawthorn MTG party. Our local guy, our local nut job, Bathroom Dan. So, how far are they going to distance themselves from that? So far, they haven't. So they talk more about the future and positivity, but they don't actually openly criticize the GOP party, either on the state level or on the national level. And when you're reticent to criticize your party, it makes you wonder how far, if they got in office, how far they would actually be different. Like they're trying to paint themselves as different, but are they really? Are we going to get sandbagged, vote a bunch of them in office, and then just have hell for the next, couple of years?
Okay. Well, I know I completely agree, and I'm sorry. I was actually kind of reading it, skimming through it, like what you had mentioned. You're exactly right. So with the Trump contempt, I mean, for me, it is kind of like you said. I'm so glad that they're holding him accountable again. And of course he's going to appeal it and so forth. But I think his days are. So I think they said he has filed he's been involved or filed over 4,000 lawsuits. Or been involved in the last since 30 years. He is incredibly decision. Everyone knows that's his thing. He sues. That's kind of a Republican, very conservative thing to sue.
He gets it too.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. So that one is. I'm not sure why you would want someone like that as president, but some people I guess do. The Musk thing. This is what I kind of think, Jen. I actually think it might be a good thing. It might be a good thing because if you remember, before Trump, Twitter was not really used as official communication. That we did it the old-fashioned way, where there was a press conference, there was a press release, the president would issue, Obama would issue, make a statement. Facebook and Twitter was kind of like a secondary. They would say something at a whatever, and then Facebook and Twitter was the official. Trump is the one who made it because he didn't, he just wanted to say it directly, so it was not filtered. And then suddenly it became like everyone's official government way of communicating. And I know everyone says it's because it happened so quickly. So maybe this will require, or at least push back, those who are in office, public officials, to kind of do things a little bit more, a press release, maybe less just I'm drunk and I'm drinking wine like Marjorie Taylor Greene does, and just say something. Maybe they'll actually think for a little bit before they post something. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I do think it's going to, if he's got the money to buy it, he bought it. I think it's going to go the way of MySpace. I think, in about 2 or 3 years, it's going to be like MySpace. What do you think?
I think all social media is, whether it's
changing,
Facebook or Meta or whatever they call themselves this week.
Yeah.
Instagram, the TikTok, the Twitter. I think they all have a product cycle or a popularity cycle. It starts with the really young. The young abandon it once the old people jump on.
Yep.
And when 70-year-olds start making TikToks, they'll go to the next cool thing because they're like, I want to see my grandparents doing. So
Jen, Jen, do you think maybe this is actually a good thing for Instagram, for example? Because there are people who use Instagram for getting their message out, especially entertainers and celebrities. Right.
Instagram is even though it's owned by Facebook because it's parent company, Instagram is more of a hybrid of TikTok or TikTok's more of a hybrid of Instagram. It's older. And it's more visual. It's a visual storytelling style. And Twitter and Facebook are more similar from the fact they're more of a news feed. They're more of current events, local events, especially Facebook on the local events is a big market they've really cornered in advertising. And Twitter has really become the preeminent news platform for Al Jazeera has a big presence on there, New York Times, all the big news feeds, all
for
the
breaking news stuff.
Everybody. So it's really designed more for current events, the day of the latest and greatest. When justice got confirmed.
Hold that thought real quickly, because then I want to get to the Charlotte one, and then the talk about your Charlotte one. I think it was a really good article, and it talked about how they had an opportunity to actually disavow the January 6th terrorist attack, insurrection, whatever you want to call it, and not one of them did. You would think that would be like just a very simple, that was a bad thing, or whatever. And so the fact that one of them is an openly gay person, and they want to make it a very big point. Haven't we learned in 2022 that not all Black people are good for Black people? Not all gay people are good for gay people. Not all Hispanic Latinx people are good for Latinx people. I mean, just because you're gay doesn't mean you're a good person. Doesn't mean you're a bad person either. I'm just saying is that to throw I'm a gay guy, and this is, as if though we're so stupid that you have to, you must automatically, no, you still got to be vetted. You still have to be held accountable for things. To me, what it means is if you're a Republican and you're gay, you're not disavowing things like don't say gay and all of the other things, then you're just a stupid gay person. So why would I want to vote for you for city council? I like you. I have a drink with you, but I don't want you to hold a serious office. So,
and that's the thing that I think if there's one thing that separates the two parties, is not so much just the policies, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of Democratic policies that are pretty close to the Republican parties in truth and actual functionality. But I think the biggest thing is that you do see Democrats will eat their own. We will criticize our president. But
that's just like a normal family, though. That's like every family.
Yeah, and I don't think it's abnormal at all.
Exactly.
Whereas, the old Reagan rule, which is thou shalt not criticize your party members, I think still holds fast and true. I think you look at Liz Cheney and those three senators that voted for Justice Brown, for example. They're outliers, but obviously the other 47 Republican senators held the party line and voted against her, and said
listen. I know you've got a lot that you're going to be talking about in your show that comes on after this one. So before we go into the topic, let's take our first break. We'll be right back on Coffee and Pan Dulce. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching our Coffee and Pan Dulce show every week. Don't forget you can watch us visually on our video podcast platforms on Facebook and YouTube, but you can also listen to us on your favorite audio podcast platforms like Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and all of the other ones that your favorite, whatever your favorite is. Once again, thank you for watching us on Coffee and Pan Dulce. We'll dance out. Welcome back, everyone. And so let's jump directly into our topic. So our topic is the Latinx Lost Generation 80s English Kids. So here's the Google machine, just to let you know that it looks like, my understanding is that in a lot of the big cities, approximately, for an example, in Austin, Texas, of the Hispanic population there, about 66% of Latinx people are Hispanic, whatever term you use, Tejano in Texas, for example. About 66% of them speak Spanish. And in most of your big cities, in smaller cities, it could vary. Atlanta has the highest ratio. In Atlanta, Georgia, 80% of of the Latinx individuals who say they're Latinx on the census speak Spanish, and we'll get into that. However, the Pew Institute says that when you get past the third generation, 70% of people speak English, and which means 70% of the individuals English, they don't speak Spanish at all. And so it seems like, according to the data, usually the first and second generation are either bilingual or so forth. But once you get past the third generation, and that seems to be pretty common with all immigrant groups, right, in the United States, whether you're Italian, Irish, And so, but this is why this is really important. I'm actually in one of those 80s child lost generations. In the 80s, what happened, I am fifth, sixth generation, it depends on which side of the family, you measure me by. My parents in Texas, and I think most of around the country, they are baby boomers, and their parents, who were the World War II kind of parents, they sent their kids, most of the kids, to Catholic schools. And at that time, when my parents were in school, you could not speak Spanish at all, or you would get in trouble. And so when my parents had us, and a lot of the Gen X kids started to come out, we were not taught Spanish at all, mainly so that way we could assimilate, that there was, it would be easier for us, so to speak. So I and most of my cousins that are my age, Gen Xers, were not taught any English at all. And we were kind of told to assimilate. And I found that a lot of Gen X, Latinx individuals who are second, third generation also fall into that. The next generation, which is the millennials, they are somewhat bilingual because parents like us, the Gen Xers, realized what a disservice it was to not teach our children a language that could make them more marketable, more profitable, especially depends on where you live, and so the other generations are now really enforcing bilingualism. And the reason, to me, this is such a missed opportunity for us, and unfortunately, it's hard. I've tried to learn Spanish. I've gotten, what is that? The thing that teaches you. Anyway, whatever the software is that teaches. I've tried that, and it's so hard to do that. But our biggest market, our biggest trading partner, the United States' biggest trading partner is Mexico, Central, and South America. That is our biggest trading partner. We actually trade, now China trades, we are their biggest customer, China's biggest customer, but Mexico and Central and Latin America is our biggest customer. And it is ridiculous that I feel like it's a missed opportunity. So I've said a lot in there. So Jenny, because I know you're from Texas and you live in San Antonio, you may know some people who were not taught Spanish.
I graduated from a high school that was over 60% Latinx, and the majority of my peers, my classmates that were Latinx, did not speak Spanish. They maybe knew a few words. They could hold. They could say a few phrases. I called it, some of it was I called it Pidgin Spanish because
sure,
it was a combination or as they called Spanglish.
Exactly.
But people in our generation that were Latinx typically did not speak it fluently. Like they didn't speak the Queen's Spanish, like Castilian type Spanish. It was more of a Tex-Mex, hey, it'll tell you a quick story of how bad sometimes it was. I was already grown. I was almost 30 years old. And I was working in a travel agency. And I came around the corner and our office manager, she's Latinx, and she was having a personal conversation on the phone. And I understood it all, and I don't speak Spanish. But she was saying like
English,
bucko and push-a-lay, and it was throwing in a little bit of Spanish and a lot of English. And so when she got off the phone, I was giggling. She said, "What are you laughing about?" I said, "Gloria," I said, "I don't know." Her ethnicity was Mexican. She was a Mexican American.
Sure.
Born and raised in the United States. Born and raised, actually, she was native San Antonio. I said, Gloria, you don't even speak Spanish. I understood that whole conversation. And she started laughing. We laughed about it, but it illustrated, because she was about the same age as me, and the same age as both of us. And she was a Gen Xer as well. And that was very typical. There was a lot of language shaming, a lot of Spanish language shaming that we grew up in, even in places where the Latinx culture was the dominant culture in San Antonio, and where they were the majority of the population, still are. And some of it, to me, is the conservative nature that you're not the boss of me, and I'm good enough to speak English. I'm as good as any white person, and I think that's a very Tejano thing too. They didn't care about the appearance of any kind of civil rights or human rights or anything like that. They're like, no, us and white people are equals. Was the way they looked at it. The way I felt they looked at it. I can't speak for them, but that's the way. That's what they would tell me, you know. And so, in fact, I had one the same office. He was half Brazilian and half Mexican, and had a master's degree. In fact, he'd tell you almost every time he had a conversation, he'd work in the fact that he had a master's degree. And he was a big old queen, actually. He just a hoot, spoke 6 languages. But when he interacted with he acted differently with his white coworkers versus his Latinx coworkers. And he would actually kind of talk down to white coworkers because he said, I'm superior to you. I'm not even an equal. I'm superior to you. And had that snap, go girl type attitude that I thought was great. But I think especially Tejanos, I saw a very much a rebellion or a pushback. Like, we don't have to speak Spanish. We don't need to speak Spanish. You know, you can just speak English to me. I'm smart enough to learn English type thing. And we're not the quote unquote, you know, the slur, which, you know, is used in San Antonio a lot.
I know what you're talking about.
That we're better than that. And we're basically, we're not, you know, ghetto type people. We're educated and all that. And so I think it came from probably 2 things, from loads of white supremacy and the fact that Tejanos, for example, I always heard in San Antonio, the border moved on us. We've always been here. You're the new arrivals. You are the interlopers. You weren't here first. We were here first. You know.
That's Jenny. That's a really good point. The reason that on Monday, some Republicans led by their leader went down to the border. And, you know, it's a big thing they do. The Republicans like to go down to the border and show how brave they are and so forth.
Especially Senator Dan from Montana. He loves it down there.
That's right.
Making sure that American myth gets made instead of that Mexican myth.
I don't know. Back in the day, people like to go across the border for the donkey shows, but that's another.
Whoa, that's
anyway. So that's a weird show.
That's a
exactly. But what you said was a very good point, because you know, there is a huge population of Gen Xers, Tejanos, Latinx people. Let's say in Texas, for example, because that's kind of what we were talking about. In Texas is a huge population, and many of them, English is their first language, or they only speak English. And on the census, they mark white. They don't mark for race, they white, and they don't go down to ethnicity, Latino. They don't want to be considered, mainly because of the past prejudiceness against people who spoke Spanish, and they wanted to assimilate. And so you'll see people like members of my family. You'll see them browner than brown, and you'll say, "Hi, how are you?" And out of their mouth is this Texas accent that's like, "Well, it's fine to see you. How you doing?" You know this, and it's you know, I'm used to it because I grew up with that. But if you go down to San Antonio and you see the people who have these Texas accents and the people who live out in the rural areas and so forth, and down in the valley, you will see they have really strong Texas accents. It's not all Texas, it's more Tejano, because there's a little bit of, you can tell some of the words they say, like certain word, like sometimes they don't pronounce the J or the Y's and whatever. Anyway,
it depends.
Long story short.
It depends.
Yeah.
There's some, they're just as country as country can be, and they may have the last name Rodriguez, But let me tell you, they are no different than my country cousins from East Texas.
Yes.
They are.
They go hunting.
Texas draw.
They go fishing.
Trucks, rednecks. I mean, I had I think the first time I really noticed what I call the redneck Tejano is when I got into
we should have a show about that, the redneck Tejanos.
Because they exist. And
I agree.
This dude actually worked for a short time, and I'm telling you, this guy had the big old 4x4 truck. Yeah. He wore Dallas Cowboys gear all the time. Mm-hmm. If he didn't wear that, he wore really immaculate clothes. Like he was very
starched jeans.
Oh yeah, the big belt buckles, the huge cowboy
with a crease,
and just redneck. I mean, the only thing missing from his overall accoutrement was having the truck testicles on the back of his truck. If he had that, because he had the bass boat too. This dude was hunting, fishing, and in fact, he used the slurs against Latinx people. He said he would say, that one beep beep beep, and I'm like, like dude, like why would you use that? Like that's terrible. I felt bad. And I'm like, oh no, please don't use that word. He goes, I'm Mexican. And I was like, you're more of a coconut, dude.
No, exactly. That's what I was actually listening. Listen, we're going to go into why this is kind of important politically, but let's take our second break and we'll be right back. This next break is going to talk to you about our shows coming up in May. Welcome back, and please don't forget to join us for the month of May. We've got some great shows coming up in May. So the reason this is really important politically, Jenny, and I know we talked about it a little bit last week, but we've been talking about it for a long time. You and I talk about this all the time. Because it's how people go after people's votes. In the United States, if you are going after Latinx, Hispanic votes, Republicans do it one way and Democrats do it another way. It seems like what Republicans do is they go after, there's just a certain way they go after Latinx voters. And it's usually kind of English, but then they have a Spanish kind of subcategory. And when they're doing that, they're actually attracting Gen Xers, people who, the conservative kind of Gen Xer Tejanos in other states, which is why they've maintained Texas for so long. Democrats, the first thing they say is, we need to go after Latinx votes. The first thing that comes to their mind is they want to make a Spanish commercial. They want to, voto Trump, or, they want to do something Spanish, which actually kind of is insulting and turns off Gen X Latinx individuals because, to your point, they're like, why are you talking Spanish to me? I speak English. It's like, I'm not one of them. And so it is this misunderstanding of Gen X, Latinx individuals, and they're very conservative. They vote at very high percentages. And I think, but it also depends, I think, also where you live. So for example, if you live in Florida, where there's a lot of Cuban Americans, Puerto Rican Americans, Dominicans, and some other, Latinx individuals, they want you to speak Spanish. It's like a compliment.
I think a very important point, and I think it's not a lot different than the different white ethnicities like Germans and white people that came after the British got here. For example, because places like Florida and California, which are also two very large Latinx states, half their cities are, Spanish names like Los Angeles and San Diego and San Francisco. But I think when you get in those, I think there's a difference between rural Latinx people and big city Latinx people. And the parallel is very similar to the white voter, from the fact that white people that live in metropolitan areas tend to be more progressive. They tend to be more highly educated. And then typically your new arrivals of any ethnicity, whether it's Germans, whether it's Latinx or whatever, tend to go to the smaller towns, the more rural areas, because they're going to get the low paying jobs. They're going to get the jobs that nobody else wants to do, that people fresh off the boat or whatever have to take because they're not a full citizen yet. Maybe they're applying for residency or asylum.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching our Coffee Pan Dulce show every week. Don't forget you can watch us visually on our video podcast platforms on Facebook and YouTube, but you can also listen to us on your favorite audio podcast platforms like Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and all of the other ones that your favorite, whatever your favorite is. Once again, thank you for watching us on Coffee Pan Dulce. We'll dance out. Hey, welcome back. We did have a little technical difficulty break, but we are back. We are St. Bernie-less and well, that's fine. And, maybe they'll be back next week's show. So Jen, what were you saying again? I'm sorry, before we were rudely interrupted.
Yes. That darn Elon Musk and the Google gremlins got us.
That's right.
But anyway, before we get into conspiracy theories, essentially, I think a lot of it. In certain ways, I think the Latinx communities, in the regard of speaking, Spanish or Portuguese, I think is something that all ethnicities and new arrivals that come to America or in the American pie struggle with. And, I can speak to, on one side of my family, my dad's side of the family, we're a family of new arrivals. So, like my dad was first generation American, I was second generation American on that lineage. Mm-hmm. And my dad's three oldest siblings spoke fluent German. Okay. But they were all born way before World War II. My dad was born in 1943. He's the youngest of the youngest three. And so in the ones that were born in and around World War II, which were the youngest three, they did not teach them any German and stopped speaking it at home because they felt what was done to the Japanese may happen to German Americans, that they would be rounded up and considered, dangerous or whatever, saboteurs. And so typically German Americans at that era of our time, but it just kind of continued on. My dad never learned German in school or in college. I never had a desire to speak it. It just wasn't a cool language here in the United States. So, and actually, weirdly enough, I took 3 years of French in high school, and can barely read any of the words anymore. And I should have took Spanish. I mean,
So, I mean, do you think, so, I mean, with the data that's out about Pew and, we're talking about the lost generation and, and specifically about Texas. And the only reason I'm focusing on Texas so much is because of everything that's going on there is completely different than Florida. California has obviously a very large Latinx, Hispanic, Chicano population, and they are different in how they approach things. They're not as anti-immigrant, that kind of movement. Texas seems to be very anti. Go ahead.
If you think about all the really heavy Latinx-based civil rights, employment rights, the labor union stuff, a lot of that organizing came from California.
It did.
Yeah. And so you had a really different mentality than you would at Tejano and any other intersection of the United States when the Latinx community is concerned. So I think you had a different breed out there as far as the mentality, because there was so many like Cesar Chavez and people like that were just so pro-union, so pro-labor, and were very instrumental in a lot of the foundations you see in California right now were because of those Latinx leaders.
Yes. I mean, well, that's why, I about a year ago, I think we had talked about, there was a documentary that was on PBS. It was called American Latino or something. And I actually I bought the CD, and it came out last September during Hispanic Heritage Month. And I bought it, and it was a very, very good, I wish somehow we could show it on this show. And it talked about the differences between New Mexico Hispanics or Latinx individuals and Texas and California, because so many Mexican families owned land in California, which is why the influence is different in California. And in New Mexico, there's still a very large percentage of Mexican families that were Mexican before they became American when the borders crossed them that still own land. So politically, and Texas was a very different situation as far as how the people came down the Americans came down, so to speak, and kind of took the land from people around San Antonio and Texas. So it was different. And of course, Florida is different. And it talked about the differences in cities, but there's a very big difference. And I guess this, it's just when people don't understand, especially, you and I live in the Charlotte area, and people don't it confuses them why here in North Carolina, for an example, 55% of people who consider themselves Hispanic, Latinx, Latino, whatever term you're using, on the census, 55% of them do not vote Democrat. And they wonder, well, why is that? Because they assume they're Spanish-speaking individuals. They're not, well, there might be some, but they just assume that. You can't apply North Carolina with Texas and California, or even Pennsylvania, which actually is a huge population in Pennsylvania. And then also in Wisconsin, believe it or not, we have a lot of listeners or viewers who are actually in Wisconsin as well. And there's a different situation, but I guess my point is you have to kind of understand how these other regions, why they do the things they do, so that way you can understand the people, the cities that you live in. So anyway.
And I think where when you compare the big three ethnicities in the United States, white, sure, black, and brown, they all three have three very unique origin stories. And I think why you see the black voter lean almost overwhelmingly towards Democrats currently is because of the progressive human rights and voting rights and that are mainstays of the current Democrat Party. Maybe not so much 60 years ago, but currently it aligns very much with most of what the black community has fought for and still continues to fight for. For social justice and reform and actually in creating a more equitable system. And you look at the Latinx population, the majority of the Latinx population in the United States have been here quite a while, if not before the birth of the United States itself, and have been here just as long for many of them, especially people of Mexican descent.
Yes.
Their story is more similar to the European colonists in many ways.
Yes, it is.
And because many of them, the majority of them are of Spanish descent.
Yes.
And so you don't necessarily, they didn't go through the same struggles in many ways that Black Americans would go through. And so I think and then of course, because the Black population's been here so long, because the majority of them were brought over, pre-1865. There wasn't a language barrier. They've all, so whereas you have a mixture in different waves of different Latinx ethnicities coming into the United States, like what you see coming to the border right now, aren't typically. In fact, we have more Mexican nationals in the last decade went back home to Mexico than came over the border.
That was what I was going to talk about, Jenny. One of the things that I've noticed. Go ahead.
The majority of the people coming to our border are more asylum seekers that are in war-torn or economically ravaged Central American nations, specifically El Salvador, Nicaragua, and places like that have struggled. Panama. Places that have economically imploded for many reasons, mostly the United States messing around down there. And so it's a very fascinating case study. And again, I think it's a generational thing more than anything.
Yes.
I think this is the one place that Democrats have really been out of step on, is not understanding the Latinx community and really understanding logistically that it's very, very diverse. They're not all
sure. So good point.
It's a very they're looking at the Latinx community as a very homogenous one ethnicity group, and there's a big difference between a Cubano and an El Salvadorian.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a huge difference.
So Jen, what I was going to say is, in Texas, for example, amongst the Tejanos, which my family's Tejano, and families that have been there maybe 2, 3, 4 plus generations. What I've noticed is amongst the Tejanos, and that might explain why they're tolerating someone like Rick Perry or Ted Cruz and so forth, is because they are very strong for secure our borders. They don't want a border wall, but they're very strong about securing our borders. And the reason is, what I've noticed is, and this is not scientific, is because the immigrants that are coming over aren't Mexican anymore. They're Central American, South American. So they consider them to be the word that you and I know what we're talking about.
A little less than.
Yeah, exactly. And so as a result of that, they are no different in their attitudes than white or even black Americans who don't want them coming over here because they're taking our jobs and all that.
In some ways, you hear some of the worst bigotry coming from the Latinx community about new arrival Latinx folks.
Oh my goodness. I hear it every time I go to Texas.
Through asylum and or a documented way or undocumented, it doesn't really matter. I've just noticed that a lot of the established families really love to close the door behind them and just say, nay, I don't want any more, which seems to be very unique to of the big three. Again, you don't hear that from black folks. Like if somebody comes in from Nairobi or South Africa or whatever, they'll welcome them with open arms. Or even somebody like Tony Foreman that's a frequent guest on the show, this Afro-Latino, and he's not going to face pushback from the black community, and white people typically, if it's a white asylum seeker like Ukrainians, for example,
they're all excited to see them.
They're like, oh, we'll take in refugees. And,
exactly.
If they're a person of color,
how many can we take in our home?
Oh no, we don't want no terrorists in our house. But you put a bunch of white people on a boat and send them over here, they're like rolling out the red carpet and giving them shoulder massages. Like, good gosh.
So I can tell already this show is going to be one of those shows that we hope not a lot of people watch. I'm joking.
Well, I mean, you do. There is a little bit of colorism inside each ethnicity.
Yes.
But I think the Latinx community probably struggles with that a lot. And then I think it's, some of a generational thing. I think some of it's an educational level thing. And then just like with white people, the city white people versus the rural white people
that's an excellent example, Jen. Hey, listen, let's take our last break because we only have about 10 minutes left. And this last break is going to talk about a show that comes on 25 to 30 minutes after this show. And it's called Two Queers in a Truck. And we'll be right back after this last break.
Up next is Two Queers in a Truck with Jenny and Christian. And hope you guys tune in. We'll see you in about 15 to 20 minutes. Thank you.
All right, welcome back. So don't forget to join us on a show that Jenny leads. And I'm sure she's got some great topics that she'll be talking about, maybe even this topic. We'll find out. But what I was going to mention to you, Jenny, what I've noticed about the lost generation kids, I call them the 80s English-only kids, which I'm part of. We enjoy celebrating our heritage, like going to Fiesta, celebrating whatever holidays, the traditions that our families have continued, and we still celebrate them. Growing up, I went to what we call Jamaicas, which are church dances. We have quinceañeras, all the traditions and weddings, but we don't like someone to talk to us in Spanish. And it's almost, I noticed that when my family started doing Zoom calls during the pandemic, we had a person who came on and started talking Spanish, and one of my aunts said, you can talk English to us, as if though, like, how dare you talk to me in Spanish? And as she's talking to someone else in Spanish. So, it's this, right. It's kind of like this, I want to celebrate it, but I want the best of both worlds. But I don't want you to call me Hispanic or Latinx.
Well, so, I think because, I think too, and especially with most of your family or all your family being, Tejanos, is that there's a little bit of that, that some of it comes from a proudness or a pride that, I can speak English, dude. Like, sure. you don't need to talk down to me in Spanish.
Yeah, I think that's how they consider it.
I speak English better than you type thing. And I think too, some of it is, a little bit of I'd call it a little bit of bouginess,
that's true. I agree.
But there is because I see that in my family and my dad's siblings that are very highly educated, very, very bougie, very,
So for those who don't understand what bougie means, what is
generation that was more of a salt of the earth? They worked in factories, they worked in the fields, and and had heavy European accents. There was a huge difference between that World War II generation and the baby boom generation. Yeah. That's all because we are really still new arrivals. I mean, and so I think that they want to have that line of demarcation. Oh no, we were born here. We're fifth generation, third generation American. Like we speak American. We're good.
Well, and that's we're not those. And I hope those who are watching this show, obviously I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so is Jenny, and we have some issues here in Charlotte, North Carolina, that we've had over the past years. And in North Carolina, kind of like ground central for a lot of civil rights type of social justice type of things. And the reason this is so important is because both parties here, I think, have really misunderstood the fast growing Latinx Hispanic community. And as a result of that, I hope that those who watch this show understand that you do have to dig a little bit deeper into, where you live and so forth. Jenny, it looks like you want to say something before we wrap up.
But, as the white person on the show,
you're totally on it.
Texas. Yeah, not at all.
Exactly.
What do you mean I'm white? You people. But growing up in Texas, and especially spending a lot of time in San Antonio, I was immersed into the Latinx culture. It was just normal to me. When I moved further north into Texas and it became whiter, and more redneck, that was the first time I ever saw prejudice. The first time I saw a really gross behaviors in northern Texas versus South Texas. I just thought it was normal to be less white people and more Hispanic and Latinx people. And so fast forward to moving to Charlotte, North Carolina, which is a little behind everybody else in a lot of ways. Whether it's gay rights and marriage equality and a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah,
I also think because the Latinx community, even though it's growing here in Charlotte so much, whether they're new arrivals to the United States or they came here for opportunity but are multi-generational Americans, North Carolinians, because they're not used to the Latinx culture and they're only basing it off national discourse and they don't have that experience. And they have maybe never lived in South Texas or South Florida or Southern California, which are hotbeds of Latinx communities, very diverse Latinx communities.
Yeah,
when you're seeing this explosion, in Mecklenburg County, for example, for people that don't know this, in the county that we're in, 1 out of 5 voters is Latinx.
Yeah,
and that's a very powerful statistic. But yet, we've never had a Latinx city council person.
Yeah.
and we don't have. We have one by marriage, Jennifer De La Hara, and then Susan Rodriguez McDowell on
County Commission.
on the county commission. But we don't have anybody of ethnicity of Latinx currently on any of our three big governing bodies, our school board, county commission, or city council. And so, which is really surprising. And I think some of it is because the Latinx community is not politically organized very well here.
Yes, very.
And it's still very polarized and scattershot because they don't know the political weight they have here. And we also have two very dominant ethnicities here, both with the power of the NAACP, the political Black Caucus, very, very, very strong.
Hey, Jen, I'm going to have to cut you off here because we only got about 3 minutes left. But listen, I predict, and you probably have predicted this, that the 80s English-only kids in Texas, the Gen Xers in Texas, I think they are overwhelmingly going to be voting for Beto. And the reason is because Beto is an example. Beto is Irish-American, but he grew up in the El Paso area, and Beto is the nickname that he has been using. And they understand that's kind of a Tejano thing for people to kind of cut their name short, even if you're not Tejano, to be called that name. And I do think that is, and the reason I'm saying that is because people who don't understand Texas are making fun of Beto, who's saying, well, he doesn't even speak Spanish, but they don't say anything about. Well, no, he does speak Spanish, but I'm saying they're trying to make it sound like him going by the word Beto is somehow insulting to Latinx people. It may be insulting to some Spanish Latinx individuals, but the English-speaking Tejanos, it's not an issue to them, and I think they actually like that. And so, I don't know, in 30 seconds, how do you think of, because I know you're a big supporter of Beto.
Well, first of all, he was both on the El Paso City Council, and then he was a congressman for that district for 8 years before he ran for the Senate. And he was wildly successful with the very dominant Latinx
in El Paso, Texas. Yeah,
in El Paso, where he grew up. I mean,
so
he actually, and they started calling him Beto when he was a little kid. And this is a nickname that he just didn't. Oh, I'm going to run for office, and I'm going to start calling Beto, kind of like Rafael Cruz that goes by Ted,
who suddenly went by Ted.
Cancun Cruz is he should never say anything about Beto.
So what? Hey, listen. So what do you think? We only got 2 minutes. So what do you think? You think they're going to vote? You think that's a? You've heard some pushback from people say, I mean, I think that.
I think people that are independents like him because he's a very common sense candidate. When you listen to him speak, and I've been to many of his rallies when I was still living in Texas, and he is a very I'll tell you what I thought about him the first time I saw him.
Here, 30 seconds. All right.
Okay. I said someday this guy's going to run for president. And he is the Texan Jack Kennedy, the JFK. And obviously he's run for Senate president, and now he's running for governor. And it is in a dead heat. He'd be the first Democrat in a quarter of a century.
I'm only laughing because those who watch this show may have heard this line before, but I just always think of this when I think of Jenny. Jenny has this line that says, and it's about this one candidate or this person who is in North Carolina, and her line is, "I know Beto, you're no Beto." Well, what's the line you have? Yeah, yes.
Well, it's the old Lloyd Benson when he was running for vice president.
That's right.
And Dan Quayle popped off and said something. Basically, he said to the effect that Dan Quayle kind of insinuated that he was kind of the JFK-ish
or whatever. Because we've got a candidate here in North Carolina who tries to run like Beto, and so I just thought it was. I every time we think of Beto, I think of that candidate. We won't mention the person's name. So anywho, So all right. So we need to wrap up. And listen, we do thank you for joining us. This has been a great show, Jenny. Thank you. It's always great to have just you and I, because we can carry the show. I just want to remind people that next week is our first show of May, and we are talking about Cinco de Mayo, because it's right around Cinco de Mayo. It's actually the day before Cinco de Mayo, and we'll be talking about the difference between Cinco de Mayo and Diez y Seis. Did you know there's a difference?
I did.
Interesting. Yeah, exactly. You know. And of course, we have some other great shows that are be coming up in May that we do hope you join us. So, Jenny, in 30 seconds, so let's tell us where you're going to be, what's going on next weekend before the next show.
Well, stay tuned. Obviously, the Two Queers show is coming up. Cinco de Mayo is coming up next week. There's a lot of festivities in the month of May. If you're in the greater Charlotte area or anywhere close to drivable range, Charlotte Pride has our annual LGBT film festival. It's called Reel Out. We have the complete schedule, complete lineup, and you can even order tickets for it, for the free events and the ticketed events. All of them are available, and you do want to reserve, even for the free events, you want to reserve in advance, because our short film night, even though it is free, we can only let in so many people. And so if you do want to come to any of the days, and it does run from May 11th to the 15th, and get your tickets early, it will sell out.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Jen. And I will be camping, I'm sure, somewhere. So, but we'll be back next week on next week's show. So with that said, let's thank everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on Coffee and Pan Dulce. And if we can get technology to work, we will dance out. Hey, how about that one? You know who that is?
That was a good song. That's
hey, quick factoid. Anybody who knows Selena was a Gen Xer. She did not know. She grew up in Corpus Christi, Texas. She's an example. She knew no Spanish growing up. She had to learn Spanish when she became a Tejano singer to cross over to Mexican in Latin American. Anyway, I thought I'd tell you that. God, I miss her. All right, so that's it. Bye, y'all.
Hey guys, check out our Facebook page or anywhere that you do us. We have 4 exciting shows after our Cinco de Mayo show, and why it's real different. We have 4 shows in May. Check out our schedule, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Next up, thanks for watching Coffee and Pan Dulce. Next up is Two Queers in a Truck. Stay tuned.